Okay, cool. Let's do it. Hey,
How you doing?
hey, love. It has been a busy day.
Oh, yes, it has.
Can we take a breath together on three? Okay, you do the countdown. Go
All
ahead.
right. One, two, three.
That's what it sounds like today.
Yes. But you're here. You're looking amazing. Thank you so much for your time. I
I'm,
really do
I'm do
appreciate
okay. I do
it.
okay.
Yes.
Okay, let me stop clowning. We got people who have joined us now.
Hey, Dr. Sutherland.
Hey, Doc.
All right. Oh my goodness. Good stuff. I know usually we like to wait a little bit, but I know I
Sure.
want to be honorable of your time and
Yes.
whatnot. But can you please introduce yourself
I
for
am
the
Jon Diggs, a licensed professional counselor with Mainspring Counseling and Training Services. I am right here in downtown Decatur, Georgia.
love it all the way in Decatur where it's greater apparently.
Where are you from?
Well, I'm from Fort Lauderdale, Florida,
So how do
but
you know that's what people say in
that's what
Decatur?
people say.
How do you
Decatur where
know
it's
that?
greater,
How do
quote
you
unquote.
how do you know that?
Oh, that's what they say.
Oh gosh, all right.
Goodness. But once again, thank you so much for joining in. Usually, I have a theme every month when it
Mhm,
comes to these lives, and it's crazy enough because obviously, with all of the themes that we have, this month is Men's Health Month as well as Pride Month.
mhm,
And
mhm.
just being able to talk to you, it's not necessarily like killing two birds with one stone, but like let's kind
It
of
is.
utilize that for
That's exactly what it is.
that's basically what it is. But I really wanted to touch base with you and at least talk to you about, like I mentioned, some of the things that I've gotten from my, not I want to say fan base, but like my followers and individuals who engage with my platform,
Mhm.
especially individuals of color who are within the LGBTQI plus community, and not to negate the experience of coming out or the experience of like rejection or anything like that. But once we help the client get through or walk through that process, it's pretty much like what's next? What is life like after that?
I
And so I
agree.
just really wanted to get your take on how to help clients establish themselves once they start working in areas of whether it's like employment or just their gender identity, spirituality, how to reconcile all of those various parts of themselves.
Yeah, that's a tough one, right? So I got to answer for a lot of people. Well, shout out to everyone that you said they're not fans, so what should I call them? People that follow
Um,
Legacy Speaks. So shout out to all of y'all, the
Legacy
therapists,
Squad, yes.
the therapists that will come on and see it later, and maybe some person who needs to see this message today. Maybe they'll see it today or a later date. I say welcome to you. That's a big question to talk about reconciling. I think the first thing that comes to my mind is it is not a destination.
Hmm.
No, I'm serious. Like it is a journey. You cannot buy a MARTA ticket and get there and think that the ride is over. That's for people here in Georgia that ride MARTA, but it is an everlasting journey. In my practice, we call it the ability to reassess and adjust because it's the idea that life is still happening, time is still moving. So we take in new information, we take in new data, and that data informs our behavior. So what we knew maybe just 90 days ago, it looks really different now, 30 days later, 60 days later. So reconciling, I think that's a tough question. Overall, I say it's a journey and it's not about a destination.
Definitely, definitely. And with the recent law that was passed where no person who is currently working can be discriminated against in the
Yes.
workplace, that was amazing. I'm so happy that
Yes.
they moved forward with that and even thought to move forward with that. Just trying to establish yourself within the space of your place of employment. I know a friend of mine, he was saying that oftentimes it's hard for him because there aren't typically any out male figures who are gay. And
Right.
so oftentimes it's just hard to find that mentorship or find that person that can stand as like the light.
Yes.
And oftentimes I know we have to teach our clients to be the light within themselves, you know,
Hmm. Hmm.
and learning how to not only be make the active adjustment, whether it's
Hmm.
challenging the spaces that they're in, but also making the reactive adjustments where it's just like, okay, well, what skills can I acquire to help with stress management or help with
Hmm.
making things more comfortable?
Hmm.
But what are some things that you kind of help with in terms of like assuring a client who is
All of
comfortable
that,
with that?
all of
Yeah.
that you just said,
Yeah.
I echo all of that. I think what's different for me by the time clients who are on some spectrum of queer or LGBTQ, by the time they reach to me, they got a problem that they're trying to solve, right?
Mm,
And so it's um, trying to understand where I fit, uh, where's my person, my gatekeeper, and even while I got this other thing going on with a partner, or I got this other thing going on with family, so it's a compounded situation. And sometimes clients present under the belief, and maybe because us therapists are not doing a good job like you're doing right now, letting them know you don't have to solve all that in your first session.
yeah.
Maybe not in the first 30 to 60 days. You don't have to answer all those big questions. For me, what that is about is understanding what your narrative is and
Mm.
what part of your narrative. Okay, what was that? What,
I
what just
loved it. I was
happened?
just like,
What
yes,
just happened?
narrative. I love it. I love it. I was like, I love
What?
it.
Okay,
Like
but no.
table soup. Like that is so good. Yes.
Okay,
Love
I'm,
it.
I'm not gonna do this with you, Sierra. I'm not doing this. Listen, it's been a long day, and I can only
Right.
wear my therapist hat so long
Me
before
as
John comes out.
well. Go ahead.
Okay, no, okay, so listen. Okay, here's the thing. What part of your narrative is coming up? So when my clients meet me, anyone, the first step we do is unbraid the narrative. We know that it's impossible to handle two and three variables at one time. Like, why do you put that kind of pressure on you? Like we got five questions we trying to answer at one time. Let's be kind to you and address one at a time. So which
Mhm.
one is most important? I think during time of crisis and during time of racial tension in our community, in our environment, what has been really, I would say, prominent and effective is asking them what part of their narrative is reacting to what they are seeing.
Mhm.
What part of your narrative is reacting to what you are seeing? And then from there, we're able to isolate one specific part of the narrative and do some skill building around that area. So throw me an example.
For example, a partner is not being supportive in their experience.
Great. Right. And a partner not only needs to be supportive in our experience, but a partner against race right now, a partner during COVID right now, a partner with me adjusting from working every day in office into telecommuting, right? So our
Yeah.
partner is supposed to be able to do all of that at one time. And I say, if we were being kind right now to you and the partner, I wonder what would kindness say? Because kindness is about being open to someone else's point of view, to only understand, not to debate or offer a rebuttal, right?
Hmm.
And once we tap in kindness, then that allows our best self to hold on. Once we able to speak through kindness, that allows our best self to show up, right? Because we want to be kind to our partner. We want to be open. And so that is the vein in which I think the first work begins. And so what that really may be about is I have an unmet need right now, an unmet need. And I don't have the ability to either communicate it to my partner or our previous work has not allowed us to do that. And so right now, it's not about just being more supportive. It's I don't know how to communicate this need to you, and I want you to hear me. I want you to support me, but I don't know how to say it. Does that make
Ooh.
sense?
Yes, there was a lot to unpack in there. And
Okay, well let me slow it down. But
no, I love it. There was like three different things that
okay,
I really appreciated. One, you took kindness, and this is crazy because you got kindness in the
Oh, we
backdrop.
played no games with the
Yes,
kindness.
but you took kindness and literally took them off the wall, and you personified kindness.
Yeah, yeah,
What would kindness say to you in that moment? It doesn't
exactly.
give a face or a race or a
Mm-mm.
gender to kindness, but what does it say to you right now? Secondly,
Yes,
communication, that's so key. And
yeah.
in terms of like skill building, we understand like every time we have something that we're trying to communicate, it's not only what we say, but how we
Hmm.
say it. We
Hmm.
need to know who our audience is and
Yes,
also the context of it all. Oh gosh, that is so good. And
right.
then thirdly, even with you looking at that individual that you're not having your needs met with,
Right.
recognizing that they only have so much that they can give too.
Only
So
so much.
readjusting those standards and not giving them a pass, but just kind of knowing who you're dealing with in
Well,
this
I'm
moment.
as therapists, I say I'm giving all relationships a pass right now because as an individual, I don't think I was ever. I might have researched it in a multicultural class. I, I, no, I'm lying. I've never had anything in my studies that has said, John, this is how you prepare for a pandemic as a therapist. I've never had that. Now, I might have been exposed as a younger person to race riots or racial tensions or exposed to it academically as I attended an HBCU for undergrad, but nothing prepared me to have both of these things overlapping each other at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And so the truth of the matter is, as individuals, we were not prepared. We're still processing and learning. And so certainly the demand and pressure on our relationships to rise to the occasion. Yes, please be kind to your partner right now. This is a lot just for an individual, not alone the relationship. So that doesn't mean y'all get to go out there and do what you want to do. But I'm saying just think about the pressure. If the relationship was its own thing, right? Let's say the relationship had its own characteristics, which it does, and it
Yes.
has its own voice. Kindness might say, hey, y'all, I really wasn't ready for this as a relationship.
Yeah.
Not to keep both of y'all stable and sane right now. So what can we do just to love on each other right now? Okay, I'm getting off my soapbox.
It's okay. And for those who are watching, when we're talking about relationships, they're not just like partner relationships, but relationships with your parents, relationship with your colleague and
Yes.
your coworker, any form of relationship. So I just don't want you to get stuck in the box of like, okay, I got to give my spouse
Okay.
or my partner a pass. But
Right.
also being mindful of that too. And then another thing that came up when you were talking about like the layers of it all, there's this
Mhm.
African proverb that says that what's the best way of eating an elephant? One bite
Mm.
at a time. And
Okay.
so you're not negating all of those presenting concerns, but you're literally sitting the client down and asking what is most important for you in this moment, like getting
Yes.
them to assess their hierarchy of needs, kind of like in the Maslow's
Yes.
triangle. And I think that is just
I
so
agree.
great.
I agree. And when we do that, I know I do it as a therapist, you do it as a therapist. But what I like to do is I ask my clients sometimes, what would this look like if you gave this same thing, gave them the same experience to the people that you love? What would that look like? And what I think we all really want, two things. We want to be valued and we want to be heard. And I don't know about you, but I've been a person that didn't always get it. And the
Mm-hmm.
people that have exercised patience with me, tolerance, those are the people who I seem to hold closest to me because I understand that it was not about how I was misbehaving in the moment. It was more about them showing up and being there for me. So you want to talk about how to strengthen a relationship? It is to be non-judgmental, hold folks accountable, but be non-judgmental and supportive. Is what I refer to as your ride or dies. Are you familiar with that? Ride or
Yes,
die.
definitely.
Okay, we got hearts on ride or die, so a lot of
Yes.
people must. Those are the people who ride with you till your wheels fall off, and you
Mhm.
honor them. You place them in another place inside your heart because when you was a whole mess, you was a whole mess. They stood up for you. They stood with you. Okay, go ahead,
I like
Sierra.
that grace. That is so
That's
sweet.
grace. Exactly. That is grace. Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Oh, let me double back to the comments. Hey, Darlene. Hey, Khadijah. Yes, let's be kind to you. Dr. Sutherland says kindness always wins. Hey, OJ. Hey, Brandy. Definitely. It's a lot being a therapist and processing through our own stuff. That is so true. Hey, Korea. Hey, Henry. That is so true. And just to piggyback off of Brandy's comment, it's a lot. I know
Yeah.
for me at work, because I currently work at a agency setting, and as somebody who has been in the field, I'm pretty sure you understand how agency life is, okay?
Yes, yes. That's where I got my first stripes from, being in the field. I come
And
from
so
community work. I was not Jon Diggs, licensed professional counselor of Mainspring Counseling and Training Services out the gate.
so it comes with a lot.
Yeah.
And the population that I serve, predominantly African American men who are matriculating from prison, jail,
Mm,
homelessness, and things of that
hmm.
nature. So it was very difficult for me to return back to work and have to take some
Ah.
time off to deal with my own stuff with this
Hmm.
race relations
Hmm.
related issues, and then have to help my clients process through the same things. It was very
Hmm.
triggering as
Hmm.
well. And
Hmm.
so when we're talking about being kind, redirecting that same energy towards ourselves. And so what are
Yes.
some great ways to be able to start putting that into practice?
Yes.
Like you mentioned, acknowledging it and holding those
Hmm.
individuals accountable. But I know that when we're being kind to ourselves, we also have to hold ourselves accountable to some of the stuff that we're dealing with as well.
Yes, and some of the steps that I'm going to lay out, I recommend you doing them with a professional, okay? But how do we invite kindness in and how do we put that into practice?
Mm-hmm.
Mainspring Approach says, and there's only one principle, and it says that all of you is welcome. All of you is welcome. It is the belief that it totally engulfs radical acceptance by Carl Rogers, this idea that no matter how provocative a client says something to you, that you hold a space of acceptance and non-judgment. And as I really started to live that and question that, like, can I be that person? Like, no matter what my client says to me or in my personal life, I can return with acceptance. And what I realized was it's not the behavior or the manifestation of it. It is the core belief that's coming forward. And believe it or not, a lot of times why people act the way that they do is because they just want to protect themselves. That's it. Or I'm fearful of being vulnerable. That's what it has to do with a lot of the time. And so by establishing a space in the therapeutic relationship, in your romantic relationships, or in your friendships, that you know what, I'm going to create a space for you, us, that all of you is welcome. Now, simultaneously, we have the right to examine our behaviors, but we can do it in a way where I'm not at you and you at me. I don't have to be malicious when I do it. I can just say, hey, that hurt. That didn't feel good. That doesn't feel like us. And I know when it doesn't feel like us, we might need to pause, stop, and go a different direction just for a moment, and then come back and let's have a conversation. That's what it means to welcome all of a person in. Does that make sense?
Yes,
And
definitely.
so once we can do that, Sierra, that's when you get to step one, which is the hardest. You ready for it?
Go ahead.
Step one is tell the truth.
Oh,
You got to be able to
blanket
tell the truth.
honesty.
Not to
Yes.
me, not to the other people, but can you sit in your own undeniable truth? You know, a lot of times when people trigger us, it's because we haven't dealt with our own truth first. And I didn't expose us, and I got to come get you.
Yes.
But whether we're dealing with any population, so specifically LGBTQ, a lot of the slurs and things that may trigger a person, it's because first you haven't dealt with what that truth is. And so therefore you are open to any wounds that come after that because you haven't dealt with your own truth about it. So specifically, if you're talking about someone who is a feminine, right? Or this whole idea of what position you play in the, wait, can we get there? Can we go there?
Yes, we can. Let's
Okay,
go.
about what position you play in the bedroom or in your relationship. You know, a lot of that has to do with what not they All right. Let's clap it for Sierra.
All right,
Let's
I was like,
clap it
wait
up.
a minute.
Let's clap it up. We're
All
clapping it
right,
up.
all right. I was like, what the heck? I was like, oh no, not right now. We
they,
just getting good.
they,
Let's
they
go
trying to
ahead.
stop us. They trying to stop us. Okay. All right. So what I'm trying to articulate here is a lot of times why things trigger us so much is because we
Mhm.
haven't consulted our own narratives and our own beliefs around it. So that leaves us open to attack.
Yes, I completely agree. I think that is the foundation of it all. And I find it to be so key, especially as like a new counselor, when you're going through your program and they tell you like
Mm.
there are going to be so many open wounds. There's so many things that you're going to find out about yourself. So make sure that you are willing to even engage in counseling while you are starting your journey.
Oh, that's
Um,
how they said it for you?
yes.
Oh, wow. This is what my orientation professor said. Classroom, all of you all that's in a relationship, stand up. Then they said, half of y'all sit down. That represents the number of relationships that will make it through the first semester. Now,
Oh,
now only 3 relationships remain standing. Those are the numbers that will survive at the end of your program.
no, they were like, if you're going to be in this program, you're going to have to go to counseling. There goes the
Yes,
counseling office right there. Make sure you
yes.
get this going because there's
And,
going to be a lot, you
and I
know.
think that's what it's speaking to is we are part of this learning continuum that, people who are not in this profession, you learn these things, I think, at a slower pace. You have the luxury of learning it at a slower pace. If you're doing this work, let me tell you, every day is something new that's causing you to examine your own thoughts, your own beliefs, your own actions, right?
Yes. Oh, my word. Yes.
And
And
that's why a
then,
lot of times the relationships don't make it because your partner is not moving at the same speed that you're moving.
mm-hmm.
All right. Now I didn't talk too much. We almost close to 8 o'clock, and we haven't gave enough feedback about mental health awareness, LGBTQ folk. What's going on?
Did anybody have any additional questions?
Oh
Like
gosh.
squad, y'all in here? Nope, no questions, no nothing. All right. But I also want to piggyback on the topic of like the heteronormative standards and self-esteem.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
because understandably, a friend of mine, because I was like, how can I approach this issue? How can I approach this topic at hand? That way I can make sure that your needs are represented when I have this conversation. And he was saying that, within the LGBTQI plus community, there is this
Mm-hmm.
pressure or this sense of feeling I'm not good enough
Mm-hmm.
because of the standards of the majority. And he provided so many examples like who's the man in the relationship, who's the woman in the relationship, who's the top, who's the bottom, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't had opportunity to talk to any other individuals about this issue and whatnot,
Mm-hmm.
but what is your take on that? And how is it the best way as allies as well as counselors to help clients with these presenting concerns?
Yeah, I think to do it just as you sort of role play or talk through it, right? What that does is it balances out the power dynamic. And it really holds to our core value, which is we are not the expert of your experience. And so when we invite clients in to tell us, well, how can I best help you? What that does is, and I don't know if you know this, you're giving them something that perhaps they've never experienced before, which is someone asking them, how do I best serve you in your moment of need? Most of the times, by the time that person has made it to you, people have been telling them how they need to show up. They've been telling them how they need to speak. Therefore, they think and believe, or I've been conditioned, that once I come in front of my therapist, I must show up that same way. And so there you have an interruption of the cycle just by you stopping and saying, and I think therapists who give that pause too, no, really, I want you to think about that. How can I best serve you in this moment? What does that mean for you? And I'm going to need your help in helping me understand. And that invites that collaboration. into the moment. I've been on several calls over the past week. Just the fundamental question, Sierra, of how do we approach conversations of people, and I go, who are different than us, and I go, did we not go through the same multicultural counseling? But aha, you know what it is? We are conditioned not to ask certain questions about sexuality, aren't we?
Right.
We're told it's inappropriate, right? You don't
Right.
ask those questions about what do you do in the bedroom because that's supposed to be taboo and secret. Well, guess what, therapists? We got the license to do it, like literally, and our profession allows us to do that, right?
Right. And I love the fact that you pointed out the multicultural competency of it all.
Yeah.
Primarily because, like, especially within communities of color, oftentimes we'll have like this white coat syndrome where it's like, okay, you're the professional, tell me what to do.
Hmm.
Be directive in nature. If you're going to give me assignments, just give me the answer. And
Right.
oftentimes when I start off with my clients, I let them know that, hey, like, I'm here on your journey. I'm just the rocks along your river just to help guide you. This is a
Hmm.
partnership. I'm very egalitarian in nature.
Yeah.
And for them, it's just like, okay, girl, all
Okay.
right.
Well, we go. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so I guess the second part of that question is more of how to help them through that process. Is that the second part of it?
Yes.
What I realize about that process is I'm having a conversation with the present day them, right? But I'm also working with younger parts of them. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And so I realized that that client in front of me, I may have a beautiful 6, 7, 8 year old, or I can have someone that's going into puberty. And so they're using the emotionality of a 12, 13 year old to help them understand how to broker a relationship at 30 something. And so
Mm-hmm.
that is the magic. That is the beauty of being a therapist, to understand how the vocabulary changes and what part is showing up in that moment to ask that question. And so my approach is to bring all those parts present. And I ask the client, what is it that you want? What is it that you're really seeking? And most of the time, you want to know what that truth is? I don't know. And the client never gave themselves freedom to not know the answer. Doesn't that it makes so much sense, right?
Yes.
But when you're deep in the thick of it, even sometimes I don't give myself a break to not be okay. I think I always got to have the answers and be on. But starting there, giving the client the space to recognize you don't have to have the answer right now. What that does is it unclutters the storage space. Now you get to decide from scratch who it is you want to be. I don't
Yeah.
have to rely upon what my grandmother or my grandfather or parents or community say. It's now about my narrative, and what that does, it allows the client to come forward and own their own narrative, decide how they want to engage their own histories, to
Mm.
understand what it means to be alive as a critical and loving human being. That's Cornell West. Now I'm gonna stop now because I feel myself churning and moving over here, and in a minute, in a minute, push over
Like,
here.
John, it's amazing. And for those of you who are still on, I have John tagged in everything. So please, please, please go over to Mainspring
Yes,
Counseling.
thank you.
Please go over. And you also, please talk about the services that you provide, John.
Okay, so he doing a lot right now. We are providing direct services through telehealth, right? I'm
Yeah.
so proud to announce that Mainspring is expanding. And so if you follow my page, you see that we're looking for therapists, we're looking for massage therapists, psychologists, psychiatrists. I want to build a space that is about wellness, that looks at the whole you, that we don't necessarily have to start with diagnosis, because we know that right now it's a whole lot of going on. And in my mind, I think about what would it look like if I just say I'm gonna spend 6 hours today at the wellness spot. Like, could you imagine what that would be like? Like when I leave, I got everything taken care of that
Get
I
off
it
of
was
work and pull up.
like
Yes.
I'm done, right? And that's I get excited because I think about what that would be like for me. Okay, so that's one thing we got going on, the expansion, right? And so on the other
Right.
side of it, I'm still doing my work on the organizational level where we're helping people understand how to reset during COVID. So we have some staff workers that will return to work soon, and they're also looking at, well, how trauma has impacted their way of being. And a lot of organizations now are listening to what the mental health therapists are saying, what we've been saying forever, which is if you take care of the people at the organization, they'll take care of your consumers. And they're listening now. So we provide trainings for those folks who want us to help them leverage kindness to help them find their mainspring. All right, the producers are giving me a countdown, but I don't know. You want to keep going?
No, it's all good. It's A-okay. All right. And like I said, I just want to honor your time, and I apologize for running over. But thank you so much, John.
You're
And for
welcome.
all of you guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Like you know, every week I feature another influencer or counseling professional of any kind, business owner, because it's very key, especially for people of color, for us to see just the greatness that we have, whether it's somebody who is providing therapeutic services or somebody who's just actually doing the doggone thing here amongst us. So thank you so much, John. I really do appreciate your
You're welcome,
kindness.
Sierra. And invite me back. I'll be here. But now I'm going to go have a little dinner now. So you take
All
care.
right.
To everybody out there, y'all take care. Be kind to yourself.
All right. Bye.
Ocean.